El Nino is a weather event that affects climate all around the world. In its original language Spanish, it translates to the boy child.
The El Nino phenomenon happens every 2 to 7 years, and each cycle generally lasts for a year. This being said, some events have lasted much longer. For example, in 1998 to 2001, La Niña lasted for 3 consecutive years.
These weather events have a huge impact on Australia. There are 2 separate cycles during this event, El Nino and La Niña. El Nino weather events are associated with Australian droughts. Weaker trade winds blow from the eastern Pacific Ocean to the west, causing Australia's oceans, which are in the western Pacific, to become cooler. With cooler waters around Australia, there's less evaporation and cloud formation, leading to lower rainfall.
La Niña weather events, however, are quite the opposite. During La Niña, strong trade winds come from the eastern and central Pacific, drawing warm water towards Australia. Australia has more rainfall during this time due to the higher amounts of evaporation caused by the warmer waters. La Niña events always begin during Australia's autumn and last for at least a full year.
The Mount Lofty Ranges spans as far north as Norayupta and down to Cape Jervis. The southern portion of the ranges is considered to be between McLaren Vale and Cape Jervis. The onset of El Nino causes many negative effects on the Mount Lofty Ranges both environmentally and economically. Environmental impacts such as drought can cause loose, dry soils, affect the population of native animals such as birds and frogs, and can cause native flora to become endangered. The ending of El Nino also has negative effects. Heavy rain often marks the end of El Nino in Australia, washing away the now loose, dry soil. Due to the possible usage of toxic pesticides in nearby farmland and vineyards, these rains could have added a negative effect of poisoning local collection areas such as the Mount Lofty water catchment.
The 3 core agricultural aspects in the Mount Lofty Ranges are grapes, located in McLaren Flat, and silviculture and cattle in Kaifo. When an El Nino occurs, it affects the vineyards with a reduction of water in the area. This impacts the grape growers with the need to use bore water from irrigation. This is expensive and difficult to achieve. An El Nino also causes stress on the environment. Grapes don't yield to the full extent and the quality of the grapes is impacted, bringing a lower income to growers. This impacts local economy and townships. The impacts on the cattle industry is also severe. The dryness of the grass has a huge effect on the diet of the cattle, causing underfed cows. Farmers then have to buy feed, affecting the health of cattle and in some cases producing lower quality meat than usual due to the extra stress from the change in the climate. Silviculture, commonly referred to as trees, are affected by the droughts of the weakening of their trunks and limbs. In this weakened state, the trees are vulnerable and unable to ward off diseases that are potentially fatal to their survival. Once the rain returns to the area after a drought season, the root system has become insufficient at getting the right amount of water for the tree. It is difficult because the roots have shrunk during the drought. Too much water after a drought can stunt the growth rate of the tree, then result in the stunting or the death of the tree.
The likely economic impacts of an El Nino on Australia is quite varied because of the tropics of Capricorn. This means that Mount Lofty in South Australia would have very different effects going on than up in Queensland, for example. One way that a farm or crop could be economically damaged is by the quality and quantity of the crop. To get a better understanding, we'll look at the banana farms in Innisfail. Cyclone Larry hit the banana farms in 2006, where it wiped out 80% of the banana crop. There's a definite change in the price for which bananas are selling for. It affects the consumers as well as the farmers themselves. Wheat is a crop that is produced in the Mount Lofty Ranges. The gross value of agricultural production, the GVAP, was $12 million in 2005 to 2006, and it required 6,695 megalitres of water. While wheat is typically a rain-fed crop, the effects of El Nino are too unpredictable, and now some wheat farmers need irrigation. 89 wheat farms, 13%, were irrigated in 2005 to 2006. If an El Nino reduces the rainfall, the wheat will have to be irrigated or dry out, directly affecting the income of the farmer. It also drives up the global wheat prices because of the reduced amount of wheat being exported. The NRM Board of Adelaide and Mount Lofty Ranges said, maintaining and protecting strong, healthy, functioning landscapes are fundamental to social and economic well-being, but with El Nino sweeping through, it might be hard to maintain a functioning landscape.
As we know, El Nino can have devastating effects on landowners. Due to extreme weather conditions and little rainfall, farmers can often lose livestock, become broke, and even forced to sell their farms. However, there are strategies that farmers can use to keep afloat during the time of an El Nino. A simple strategy that landowners can use is a graze rotation. A graze rotation is important as often overgrazing can occur from livestock due to a lack of food. Overgrazing is often a result of failure to rotate animals in harmony with forage growth. A successful graze rotation is a matter of moving animals before they have the opportunity to regraze on the lush regrowth. This is especially important during a time of an El Nino to let this regrowth grow, as if the pasture is left to graze on, it will become devastated and unlikely to regrow during the extreme heat. Rotating livestock through multiple paddocks is a good way to allow time for foliage to regrow, as often it takes about 3 to 6 weeks for full regrowth for most species. Monitoring an El Nino is the best way to keep out of strife. The ENSO tracker is a tool available on the Bureau of Meteorology's site which can give an idea about whether or not an El Nino may be happening soon. With this information, farmers can plan when to sell livestock, manage feed and plant crops, which can survive the El Nino period. A feed budget should also be considered. Think about how much extra feed you can afford and work out how much that will supply. If you cannot support all of your livestock, the best thing to do is sell them while we can. They should be monitored throughout the drought to ensure you do not unnecessarily lose livestock. Knowing when to plant your crops is also important. By knowing when an El Nino is likely to occur, a plan can be made to ensure that they are well established at the beginning of an El Nino and ready during the El Nino period. Rotating crops is also a good strategy, as some plants remove essential nutrients from the soil while other crops can replace them. This is a good strategy to ensure soil remains in a healthy state.
In addition to becoming more frequent, El Nino and La Nina events are likely to become more extreme in nature. With the occurrence of global warming, weakened currents in the ocean will cause a weakening in the water circulation. This is represented by the arrows in the diagram above. This weakening will lead to a greater chance of strong El Nino events. In fact, it is predicted that the likelihood of an El Nino event becoming extreme is 50% more likely with global warming than it is without. In addition to an increased cadence on the ENSO cycle, El Nino and La Nina events are predicted to become far more extreme, going from one extreme El Nino event every 187 years to one extreme El Nino event every 48 years. An extreme El Nino event is far more likely to be followed by an extreme La Nina. The increased severity of these phenomena will cause more extreme weather events in places and times where we do not expect them. This will decrease our preparation for these effects and hamper our efforts to combat them.
Finding the connection between ENSO and climate change has challenged scientists for many years. Strong evidence lacks in the area, and research is difficult. It is agreed that as the effects of climate change increase and the Earth warms, ENSO will be affected. El Niños, particularly Super El Niños, and La Niñas will occur more often, and the effects of these will be more extreme. Super El Niños have occurred before. In 1997 to 1998, abnormally heavy rains arose across the US, landslides hit Peru, and wildfires struck Indonesia. The effect of this event was felt all around the world. Fisheries and agriculture industries were severely disrupted. $33 to $45 billion was needed to fix the damage, and around 23,000 deaths were recorded. Now, as climate change becomes worse, Super El Niños will become more frequent. happening almost 2 times the normal period of 20 years between super El Niños. The evidence to support these findings comes from studies of simulated climate models with varying temperatures and rainfall across the tropical Pacific, with and without changes in greenhouse gases. With global warming, the eastern equatorial Pacific warms faster, where surface temperatures are usually about -12 degrees cooler than in the western tropical Pacific. So as the east warms, the temperature difference between the two regions declines, changing atmospheric pressures which weaken and almost reverse the Walker circulation. Model biases and recent observed Walker circulation strengthening means more testing needs doing as new models, observations and insights become available to tackle one of the world's most important questions in climate change science.